Hey David, how's it going today?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Cool, me too. I am curious to ask you a couple questions about a lot. First of all, starting with the title, I'm curious whether or not the title basically stood for the people being alive versus the zombies, or if it meant that the people who are alive are the actual villains.
I think if I remember correctly, the original title was Another Night Alive, and that was a previous version of the script, which was a bit tighter in its kind of time frame, where it was just basically a group of people trying to survive the night. And then, as my producer and I, we worked on the script. That concept kind of evolved and changed. And it wasn't really relevant, so we just basically just kept the alive part for the title. And yeah, it's I think it's meant to be a bit ambiguous about the characters wanting to be alive, the zombies also somehow being alive in a way, and it's a sort of double meaning for the title when you've seen the film.
Awesome. Now, I wanted to know when you initially started with the concept for this original script, what character were you looking through the lens of, or were you just kind of seeing it as an ensemble?
I think it was always more meant as an ensemble originally when it started. Also because when I started on as I was saying earlier, on the very original version, when I started writing and I started kind of creating the characters, I thought for some reason it ended up being very close to Alien. Not in a conscious way, but I just realized it kind of had the same number of characters. And so one of the things that always fascinated me with Alien is that when you watch just the first film on its own, it's very difficult to tell who's going to live and who's going to die. And that's something the film really pulls off absolutely beautifully. And I think in a horror movie, this is something valuable because sometimes in horror movies, you know who the star of the film is, you know they're going to make it to the end, you know this is an extra that's going to die. And that kind of robs you of the suspense you want in there. So I think when I was trying to write Alive, I also wanted to have that sort of approach at some level, that all of the characters were important from their own point of view, which means they could have their own agendas, their own personality, they could exist on their own. But also it meant that the audience really couldn't tell who was going to make it, who wasn't going to make it. And I think that's an interesting concept to have in that genre.
I think you're correct, and the names are almost spelled the same. The first three letters. So I can see that's who I thought you were where I thought you were gonna end up going. I When I was watching it, I saw obviously the bald guy. I can't remember his name.
Pete is the name of the character.
Yeah.
Pete is the name of the character. Angus Kennedy is the name of the actor.
So I um wanted to know when did you bring that character in? Were you initially like playing out the characters and he was a part of what you wanted to make the story, or did he come in to kind of as just muscle for the father and the people that you had?
No, I think I wanted him to be a full-fledged character, and I think he has his little moments. He's not central to the story, but he's important in the parts he's in. I think he has a few little exchanges with Father Albert that shows that they have a history. They have a sort of weird dynamic going on between them that I think is interesting, as he's the muscle, but he's also he realizes, I think, that Father Albert is the leader of the group he's in, but he also doesn't just want to be subservient to him. He also has this kind of conflict of who's in charge, and he understands his place, but he's not entirely happy with it. So I think there's a bit of a layered dynamic between them, hopefully.
Now, I hate asking this question, but because of its specificity of being zombies, did you have any particular um inspirations when you were writing the script, like
I
movie wise or TV?
Well, obviously, and this is all the more true since obviously we're shooting in England. I think for the past 20 years, every zombie movie that exists is indebted to 28 Days Later. And that genuinely changed the landscape of the zombie genre, I think, particularly portraying fast zombies. And I could be wrong about this. I'm not sure if there were faster zombies before that film, but definitely it kind of changed the portrayal of zombies from kind of slow shambling undeads to something a lot more aggressive. And I think that's something that I find interesting to portray zombies, because it heightens the tension and how much uh, they can surprise the characters and be a lot more aggressive in the action scenes. And today, I think mostly a lot of movies now that still have slow zombies tend to be more comedy-oriented parody movies, almost like Shaun of the Dead. And if you are doing more interesting zombies these days, you have to do fast zombies. So that was definitely one of the biggest influences, obviously.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. And 28 Days Later obviously was a fantastic inspiration for a lot of things. But I did like that they were fast, because I remember the one scene somebody tried to run off between them, and like between about 6 of them, and they just immediately turn and tear them up. And it's like, if you're watching something like The Walking Dead or something like that, they would be able to run through the crowd of zombies with no problem. So I like the aspect that they had some sort of skill to help them, eat. um it's such an interesting concept, the way it um revolves around a person who's infected but isn't being killed, or isn't, under duress at all from regular people. Where did that concept birth from?
Oh, I'm not really sure at this point. I think that was an idea from my producer that we wanted something a bit of more central emotional core to the film, and just go beyond the whole we are just trying to survive and escape the zombies. We wanted something that would drive the plot in a bit more emotional fashion, and where the characters were doing something that would put them in that sort of moral conundrum of not exactly knowing how to deal with the situation. And I thought that was some element of drama that we thought was really interesting.
So when you initially wrote it, were you writing it as a screenplay or more of like a novel before you
No, it
decided?
was always written as a screenplay from the
Okay,
beginning. Yes.
understood. And I wanted to know about the things that they were feeding um Bernie.
Yes, well, yeah, the meat, yeah.
Yeah, the meat that they were feeding Bernie. Um, I wanted to know if there was anything that, like, what did you actually use?
It's watermelon. It's heated, very slowly cooked watermelon. It looks strangely a lot like meat.
Yeah, that's crazy. Um, because I was just wondering, like, what. This kid's obviously eating something.
Yeah, we can use real meat or whatever. That
So,
was an option, obviously. So yeah, no, it's kind of very, very good watermelon. Actually, it tastes nice.
so what from how you felt when you were starting the screenplay and were kind of like in charge of the story on your own, what was the difference like when you ended up working with a team on the movie, like with producers and everybody? Was it do you feel like you had less of a say in certain things?
Well, obviously, yeah, I did as the writer and director, you always have a say in a lot of things, but obviously working with the producer, Rachel Hillman, director of photography, Tom Allen, you end up just a very, very creative relationship, trying to figure out the best way to translate what's on the page to an actual film and to work with the constraints you have on a very small, obviously, production with very little budget. So you come up with really creative solutions to try to achieve as much as you can of what you've written.
Did you have any of the actors or actresses in mind when you were writing the characters?
No, absolutely not. I think we cast all the actors and actresses significantly after the script was finished writing.
Okay. Was there any of the auditions that like really kind of blew you away from anybody? Like obviously you like them all because you hired them all.
I think we were very lucky that we found people who were quite good for each and every part and quite embodied what I had in mind in the script. But I was blown away by a lot of performances during filming on set, particularly Ellen Hillman, who's absolutely brilliant. Stuart Matthews as Father Albert, who's was incredibly creepier than we thought he would be at first when we interviewed him and he auditioned, and he seemed right for the part, but then he was incredibly creepy on set. Jill Broderick, who plays Lucy, also had very, very creepy moments that she pulled out really beautifully.
Yeah, I think the actor who played the father is he did it really well. He's a really good character actor. Like because like you said, he was creepy. Um, I want to know if you have a um, side that you see is more correctly, like the people who want to kill the infected child or the people who want to keep the child alive.
I know. I think we want to gravitate towards the characters who want to keep people alive mostly. I think this is the more positive side of what we are trying to communicate. That in a lot of zombie movies, it seems that just you look at people and you say, well, they're zombies, they need to die. And I think one of the points the movie is trying to make is that that's a bit of a shortcut. That's an easy shortcut, and that doesn't quite uh it's think about things in a very particularly novel way, and that in a world like a zombie apocalypse where things have changed, it's important to just reconsider everything you think you know.
That's a good way to put it. So with if you were alive, or if you were alive, obviously you're alive. If you were in that situation in real life, do you think that you would feel the same way?
I would hope so, but you never know. It's easy to say when you're just sitting at home and it's warm and comfy, and just I think hopefully I hope I would.
Was there anything that you needed to change or like kind of slightly remove from the script because of the pandemic that was going on?
Not specifically. We had a difficult time shooting during the pandemic because we started filming before, and then we had to take a break after we had shot about a third of the movie in early 2020, and we didn't know when we could start again. And thankfully, we could then shoot somewhat in the summer of 2020. Then we had to take more breaks, and we had to come back and finish some of the scenes. There was nothing we actually took out of the script because of the pandemic. There were a few locations that were available to us that stopped being available. So there are a few shots where we had to be a bit creative, and we had cutaway shots in some scenes that we basically end up shooting in our garage instead of the actual location we were in first. And then make things tight enough that you couldn't really see that we were not in the same location. Hopefully it worked.
I couldn't tell at all. I had no idea. When you were done with the script, are there any other projects that you've been working on that you'd like to plug?
Well, yeah, I'm working on a script called The Devil's Workshop right now, and my producer is working on the budget, and we're going to try to raise money to do that. And it's a haunted house movie, basically, very classic in its setup, but we're going to try to subvert a few tropes of that also other horror genre that has been done and done and done. Hopefully we'll find a bit of still originality in that.
I like that. Is there anything that you have coming up that you didn't start on yet?
No, I think we're gonna focus on one thing at a time. Seems like a good policy.
Well, sometimes as a writer, it's hard to not have multiple ideas. I mean, not weird to not have, but you can't always control how many ideas you
Yeah.
have going on.
Yeah.
So I think I asked mostly what I had in question. So I'm curious about, is there anything that you think about the movie that you would like to express to people who would potentially view it?
Well, I think, yeah, if you're a fan of the horror genre and the zombie genre, and you want to see something that's a bit out of the box, a bit slightly different from what you've seen before, then that's a good pick for you. And just check it out. It's available pretty much on every single VOD service and cable service out there.
Okay, awesome. And that became available last week, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, exactly a week ago. It's been available for a week now.
Awesome. Is there any last things that you'd like to say before we wrap?
Well, thank you for having me for one thing, and no, I hope everybody enjoyed the movie and has fun.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, the recording has a weird message. I always say goodbye on the actual recording and then say goodbye.
Right.
I genuinely appreciate you coming on and talking about things. I
Yeah, thank
obviously
you.
had a lot of questions about it, but I loved how original it was. I think you did
Well,
really, really well.
thank you.
I try not
Well,
to
thank you.
ham up the guests too much during the show, but yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
was a great time.
yeah, I had a nice time talking to you too. Thank you.
Okay, well, you have a good one, and hopefully we'll talk again for the Devil's Playhouse, or is it the
Hopefully,
title?
workshop. Yeah, hope
Workshop.
so.
Okay,
Hope so.
all
Well,
right, awesome. Have a good one, brother.
you too. Have a good one.